Session 9, Infant Feeding, Part C. So welcome back, and this time we're looking at the practicalities of infant feeding. So probably my first tip that I would give you when you're settling down ready to feed your baby, however you're feeding them, breastfeeding them, formula feeding them, however you're feeding them, would be to go to the toilet and have a wee. As a new parent, you're really tired. As a new mum, you're really tired. You're really busy, and sometimes, it's a whole new world out there. And sometimes, you forget about looking after yourself. Yeah, and it's very easy to think, when did I last go to the toilet? Yeah, but actually, for me, a really good top tip is to go just before you feed the baby, because you're never going to forget to feed your baby. So therefore, if you always just go to the toilet first, tick tick, you've remembered to go to the toilet as well. So for me, go and have a wee, and always before you feed your baby. Particularly, of course, if you're breastfeeding, because if you're breastfeeding, you might take you a while to get the baby positioned and comfortable and on well and feeding, and then when you are feeding well, you will feel some sensation in your womb, obviously much milder than you would have done when you were in labour, but you will feel some sensation as the womb. That's a really good thing, because it means your womb is contracting back down into a position that it was in pre-pregnancy times. Yeah, so actually, it is a really good thing. But if you start to feed and you need to have a wee, because the bladder is so near, that's going to feel really uncomfortable. So for me, I would say always important to go to the toilet first and get yourself comfortable before you go to feed. So by that I mean get yourself comfortable and bring the baby to you, rather than you being in a really uncomfortable position, to feed the baby. Because a feed time for a baby can be anything between 5 minutes and 45 minutes. So if you look at an average there, 20-25 minutes or so, you've got to be in a position that you're going to feel comfortable to maintain for that amount of time. So make sure that you have your phone nearby. Make sure that you have, a drink alongside of you. All those things, maybe the television remote control, I don't know. Make sure you have the things that are going to make you feel comfortable and relaxed, whilst you are feeding your baby. So that's really, sort of important thing to say. And also, perhaps think about, making sure that you're comfortable. Maybe even, putting your legs on, your feet on something, or on a stool, or on the sofa. I don't know, something so that your legs are slightly elevated, because, lots of girls get swollen fingers and swollen feet in pregnancy. But you may have avoided that. That may not have been the case for you. But sometimes girls still get those swollen fingers and swollen feet. People that didn't have it in pregnancy might get it afterwards. You think, how can this be? Yeah, and it is because after the baby is born, you've got all this extra fluid circulating around your body that your body's now getting rid of. And if you've got your legs down, all that that extra fluid might well go to the path of least resistance. So it's good to be moving. It's good to rotate your ankles, but it's also good to to sort of elevate them, after when you're sitting down, when you're feeding. So just get yourself comfortable, get in a nice position so you can really relax and enjoy this and enjoy your baby. So if, however you're going to feed your baby, whether you're breastfeeding or formula feeding, it's a good idea to hold the baby in the sort of position as if you were going to breastfeed. So if you're formula feeding, often people will hold the babies more, say, a slightly lower angle like this, and be feeding the baby like this. For you, that's perfect, because you've got a really good, sorry, the baby's now out of sight for you on this my iPad here, but you're in a really perfect position to have a really good look at your lovely baby. But however, remember what we were saying on a previous video about the eye-to-eye contact thing, when we looked at baby Ethan with those little pads, how they fixed and stared at the little pad that looked like a table tennis bat thing, rather, that looked like a face. So it was. We know that it's really good to have, to hold them as if you, in the position, the distance, as if you were breastfeeding, because then they're in that perfect eye-to-eye contact that they can still see and be looking at you, and you looking at them a lot more easily, and so you can enjoy that. So Let's think about the positions then. So I've got this, we kind of quite like acronyms here at Western Sussex, and here you can see the acronym CHIN, and the word CHIN stands for close, head back, in line, and nose to nipple. Yeah, so when we're thinking about positioning the baby, so you've got yourself comfortable, you're sitting comfortably, and so then you can, get yourself in that nice position ready to feed your baby. So probably the most standard position is with the baby across you, yeah? So that might mean that you're sitting on the chair or sitting on your bed, and you've got the baby sitting in front of you like this in a nice, sort of a straight position. So that's where this chin business comes in, because the baby is nice and close to you. And you can see that where I've got my hand positioned, I've got my hand behind the back of the baby's neck. So I wouldn't have it behind the baby's head, because if I did, I'd be forcing the baby's head forward. That's rather like, trying to drink, I don't know, have a drink with your chin tipped forward. You just wouldn't be able to do it. You've got to be in a nice straight line. So the baby is in a nice straight line. So it's got its tummy to my tummy, and it's got its nose to my nipple. It's in a nice straight line here. So you would imagine a little rod, if you like, down its back there. So it's in a nice straight line and well supported. So that means that it's in a nice straight line here with and I'm holding the baby behind its neck. So it holds it in like this. So it's not curled round, and there's plenty of space for my baby to breathe. Yeah. So it's in a nice straight line, and as we can see, nose to nipple there, which is a really good position to be in. So I'm going to, we'll come back to that actually in a minute. So I'll show you, I've got something to show you on here about actually attaching the baby onto the breast. And I want to just talk that through with you. It's kind of obviously quite difficult using the iPad, but I'll just show you, we'll go into that in a few minutes, but just for a moment. So this is probably the most common position, yeah? So the baby in that nice straight line like this. And all the things that we talked about before, about if the baby isn't actually feeding well. You can see the baby really beautifully, really clearly here. You could be, if they were dozing, you could stroke their cheek, tickle their toes, or the palm of their hand to get them going. This is kind of a very standard position that people find really comfortable to use. Now, sometimes, just like you or I, when we go to bed at night, we like to sleep on one side of the bed, yeah? And if you to go onto the other side, it doesn't feel comfortable. That can be the same for your baby. So the baby might really feed really well from you in this position. You're sitting maybe on a chair or on the bed, and you've got a pillow maybe underneath you here, underneath the baby, between you, sort of on your lap, yeah? That's going to give you some support there and feels quite comfortable. But if you go to feed the baby on this side, so exactly the same position, but just on the other breast, sometimes the babies are just not interested. It's like you've been on the wrong side of the bed. It feels all out of line. It just doesn't feel right. They just don't like it. They're just not interested. So that's where another position comes into play that's really useful to do. So that is the position where, again, the baby's still in a lovely straight line, but this time you've got the baby underneath your arm. So it's almost like a bit of a rugby tackle position, yeah? So the baby's still in a lovely straight line, so it's not all hunched up and curled around. You're still supporting behind the back of the neck here. And what's happening this time is really the baby, to all intents and purposes, thinks that it's over here, yeah? In the position that feels really comfortable. But actually, it's over here on this breast. One to you, yeah? So actually you can, it can be a really useful alternative position for you to use. So if you're in this position, and say you were sitting in a chair to feed your baby in this position, you won't want to sit back. That might not be so comfortable. So that cushion, that pillow that you might have been using on your lap when you had the baby here, you might choose to put behind you now, so it makes you sit forward, but you're still propped up, so the baby isn't all curled round and hunched round. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you can see that. Another position that you might find really useful for feeding is, and this is going to be hard to demonstrate here, is one where you're on your side. So I want you to imagine that I am, on my side, on the bed, yeah, or on the sofa. So I'm on my side, and that can be a really comfortable position to be in if I've had a cesarean section, and so I don't really want particularly the baby resting on my tummy. That's when I might use this position as well, actually. Or perhaps if I have had, I've had stitches, and maybe I've got a bit of maybe a little bit of uncomfortable sore tail end, and sitting on my bottom might not feel the most comfortable position to be in. So sometimes for those women, those girls, to be on your side is really, really good. Now, of course, that position, that would mean that the baby would be sort of alongside of you, but you can actually, it's actually a really good position to be in. It's really difficult for me to, I don't know how to demonstrate that on here easily for you, but basically I would be lying down, the baby's at my side, and again I can get the baby in that, remembering all those exactly same techniques about not curling the baby around, supporting the baby behind the back of the neck, and getting the baby on nicely. Now this, that position is also often quite nice for girls that have got larger, fuller breasts, because when you're sitting upright to feed your baby, if you've got larger, fuller breasts, sometimes you're kind of looking over the top of the breast to sort of check and see if the baby is on correctly. And if you're trying to, let's have my baby again, if you're trying to do that, trying to have a look over the top of these larger, fuller breasts, often you're kind of doing it with your fingers, and when you're doing that, you're kind of pulling the breast tissue back a little bit to have a look, yeah? And whilst the babies at this age, they might have teeth under the skin, under the gums, but certainly not many babies have teeth ready come through at that point. But I can tell you their gums are pretty strong, and so if they're on and feeding and you're trying to pull it back to to have a little look, they might be still hanging on, and if you're pulling it back like this, yeah, that is really going to hurt, yeah. So when you're in that position on your side, it's often easier to see with fuller or larger breasts if the baby is in a good position. What I would also add to that is when the baby is on the breast, and we'll talk about, I'll show you the positions in getting the baby on in a second, but sometimes when the baby is on the breast, if you're not sure that the baby's in the perfect position, then what is really good to do is maybe that's why it's another good reason why you've been to the toilet and washed your hands, is that you can put your baby finger inside of the baby's mouth, and by sliding your finger in and inside the baby's mouth there, it releases that suction, so therefore you can release the baby from the breast without pulling and making you sore. So that's another really good thing to remember. So we've learned so far, when we're thinking about the practicalities, the importance of going to the toilet first, getting yourself comfortable, getting everything around you that you might need, and bringing the baby to you. We're thinking, because you might be there for quite a bit of time, and we've thought about the main positions that that the babies will be in, like this, or like this, or you on your side. And we're remembering the word chin as our acronym to remind us of this: close, head back, in line, and nose to nipple. Now they're really good things to remember. So I obviously am going to continue with this now, but we're at 14, nearly 15 minutes now with this video. So I think we'll stop here, and then we'll pick up again with the next video. So bye for now. See you in a while.